Hey everyone! Before we get started, I just thought you might like to know that I wrote a book. Government in Exile is a weird little combination of political drama and 1930s style screwball comedy. The lord of a manor is forced to take in hundreds of legislators and bureaucrats from the country next door, which just got invaded. The only way to get these annoying people out of his house is to help them liberate their nation. If that sounds interesting to you, you can pick up Government in Exile in paperback or ebook through the link in the description. Thanks. Now, please enjoy the video. After the first trailer for The Rise of Skywalker dropped, I entered this pathetic little 5 stages of grief period. Got stuck in bargaining for a while. I remember making a list of reasons why the laugh was actually just deceptive marketing. By the time it became obvious that Big Daddy Sheev was indeed coming back, I simply resigned myself to not seeing the movie in theaters. It just felt like the wrong venue for it. Too much pageantry. Like you don't want to find out you have cancer in a Christmas card. When I finally got around to Hondo Onakaing the movie a year later, Darth Sidious's Don't Call It a Comeback tour was handled about as poorly as I dreaded. And we'll get to that, my god will we ever, but first, let's deliberate on the lesser charges. With the great gaping wound in the story that is the return of Palpatine, it can be easy to forget all the other nicks and scrapes across the Rise of Skywalker's ass. The grisliest of the lot is pacing. The movie starts by introducing a practice where a ship pops out of light speed at a random location for about a fraction of a second and then hurtles away at relativistic speed. This is called hyperspace skipping, and the movie never stops doing it. The tone of this Lambo slamming into a fire hydrant at 120, then spinning 60 feet into the air that J.J. Abrams calls a movie is, Run! Run! We have to go to the place to do the thing, to go to the next place to do the next thing! Hurry! Hurry! But what does it all mean? No time for questions like that! Go! Go! Shoot the thing! The way they wasted Kerry Russell is utterly unforgivable. Elizabeth Jennings from The Americans is like the greatest female character in the history of television, and you took the actress who played her, stuffed her into an ugly Durasteel shell, and gave her piss all to do. The Death Star dagger outline thing was incomprehensibly stupid. And yes, I get it, JJ probably saw Raiders as a kid and is trying to reproduce the map room Staff of Ra stuff, but my lord of the sun, have a little class about it. The main characters all seem to hate one another. They snipe and bitch at each other in joyless, passive-aggressive tones for minutes on end. Poe in particular is turned into a bitter little pissant. The music is bland. This is Star Wars, for God's sake. How did you even do that? Guess after John Williams did that bartender cameo, he just stayed in the tavern overnight doing shots as he scored the movie. Not that I blame him. Why should he have to carry this mess? Even the visuals suck. Or maybe they're really great. Who the hell can tell when no shot lasts longer than a quarter of a second? Of what I was able to make out, the Battle of Exegol looks like fried vomit doused in an epilepsy-inducing quantity of lightning sauce. Seriously, Palpatine's throne room is a black abyss lit entirely by flashes of electrostatic discharge. I guess the Final Order, which, wow, they actually called it that, Guess the Final Order didn't have enough room in the budget for light bulbs after they paid for that fleet of recycled CG models of Imperial 1-class Star Destroyers from Rogue One, each one just lazily scaled up 300%, presumably including their interior spaces and furnishings so that Admiral Pride needs a ladder to use the refresher. They actually did that? Good lord, they actually did that. That is the overwhelming sentiment that comes to mind when watching The Rise of Skywalker. They actually did that. Aghasted awe soaks the viewing experience like mustard dripping down your thighs. That isn't to say the movie's all bad. There's 0.25% of it I found tolerable. Obviously, Carrie Fisher's death did this story dirty, and there really was no good way to handle something like that. But for the most part, incorporating unused footage of her from episodes 7 and 8 was a pretty elegant solution. Surprisingly tasteful even, given the digital necromancy Hollywood has become so fond of in recent years. Speaking of ghosts, Han's scene was also great, and would have been even better if Disney had coughed up the extra $5 million to get Harrison Ford to shave. Okay, enough of this state-mandated microdose of positivity. Let's poach the elephant in the room. I love Palpatine as much as the next guy. I think it can be easy to forget that for a good decade and a half, the Emperor was just the gray, shriveled wizard from Episode 6. He was, ultimately, a generic big evil bad guy. Though an exquisitely acted and exemplarily written one, to be sure. His actions in the prequels recontextualized him. Through his puppeteering of people and institutions, his grooming of Anakin, the way he twists noble emotions into sickening parodies of themselves, Palpatine establishes himself as perhaps the greatest evil mastermind in film history. What I'd argue, though, is that the true face of the Emperor is somewhere in between these two visions. Palpatine is less an engine of history than a man of his time. His success can't be attributed to his actions alone, but also to the socio-political environment in which he operated. He's canny, but he's not a genius. All the Machiavellian manipulation in the universe won't do aspiring autocrats a lick of good without a hospitable environment to operate in. Dung for the mushroom to grow on. Palpatine's big lies all have kernels of truth. Truths which predated him, and which originated from sources well above even his pay grade. His moral relativism about how the Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way wouldn't be as convincing as it was if the Jedi weren't guilty of so much. Hubristic arrogance, cold calculation, claiming to be the keepers of the peace and then taking the title of general, sitting in their literal ivory tower as they watch the universe rot without lifting a finger to stop it. The Empire wouldn't be so appealing if the Republic wasn't such a distant, bumbling mess. When Mace Windu held that lightsaber to Palpatine's throat in a desperate Hail Mary to save the Republic, he had no plans on how to make the Republic worthy of that survival. Same way the senators who performed, let's call it, extreme acupuncture on Julius Caesar to defend Roman democracy didn't exactly have a 5-point agenda on building a better Rome. That doesn't make Windu and the senators wrong, nor Palpatine and Caesar right. Nor does it even create a both sides are the same moral equivalence between the two. It just reaffirms the idea that you can't beat something with nothing, no matter how vile that something is. Had Palpatine said what to Windu one more goddamn time, it wouldn't have mattered, not in the grand scheme of things. Monsters like him don't come to power when all is right in the world. Palpatine is the symptom, not the disease. You bring him back, and you put out the message that he's unique. He's not. That's what's so scary about him, that he's not an outlier, that if his schemes failed, there would have been others who could have filled his shoes. Palpatine has a million understudies all waiting in the wings, grasping to finish what he started. He may be mortal, finite, but what he represents is recurring, infinite. You pimp out the character, the man himself, and you degrade the greater idea that he represents. But that's not allowed, is it? Greater ideas? We'll have none of that. The Rise of Skywalker is a movie at war with the very idea of ideas. I don't often cackle, but I certainly did when I saw that wondrous scene where the Star Destroyer crashes on Jakku, right next to the Star Destroyer that crashed on Jakku 3 decades before. Either J.J. Abrams is the least self-aware adult human our species has ever produced, or he's taking the piss. You can say I'm barking up the wrong tree expecting salient political commentary in a movie about spaceships shooting pew-pew lasers at each other, and maybe that's fair, but in that case, you gotta tell me how that line of reasoning leads anywhere but here, ending up right back in the exact same place we frickin' started. With Rey moving into Luke's old house, the scene where she hoses the charred corpses of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru off the welcome mat, presumably cut for time. All that being said, I think it is worth addressing the idea that sure, bringing Palpatine back sucks, but for mechanical narrative reasons, it had to happen. Some people say that Rian Johnson killing off Snoke was a mistake because it eliminated Ben Solo's ability to redeem himself going forward. That this decision limited the next director's options of what to do with the character to having Rey hunt him down and kill him like a dog, or bringing Palpatine back to stand in for burn victim Hugh Hefner to force Ben's redemption. I disagree. Why does a character's turn back to the light have to be triggered by his opposition to a greater threat? Why must the path to redemption run exclusively through conflict? Well, you might roll your eyes and answer, because the movie is called Star Wars, dumbass. Of course there's going to be conflict. Which, yeah, fair enough. But why does the greater threat Ben is in conflict with have to be a dude? Why can't it be a system? Why can't it be his own soul? If you're doubting whether writing something like that is even possible, I've literally done it. Something I noticed writing the scripts for these retrospectives is that they were a bit of a slog to get through. Meanwhile, when I took my little stab at rewriting the sequel trilogy, the words flowed like water. That's because, while it can be fun to bitch and moan about a work of art, it's a lot more fun to make your own. Trying to reinvent this particular wheel was a therapeutic exercise for me. It was also a clarifying experience. I think it gave me a respect for just how complicated the task at hand for the sequels truly was. It's overwhelming, and for as much crap as I give JJ, I can begrudgingly acknowledge why he flinched away from that mission. Rewriting this story has, I think, given me both a greater love for Star Wars and a cleaner window into the flaws of how it's been handled recently. I'm not saying that people have no right to complain about the sequel trilogy if they haven't written their own. That's obviously BS. I also don't share this weird, pseudo-populist beef with critics the way that many people seem to. I just think they should try their hand at creating something. As should we all. Not to prove that you can do it better, just because it's something worth doing. My point here is that it all comes back to this idea of destruction versus creation. You can't beat something with nothing. So, create. Fan fiction, original fiction, write, draw, compose, build. Okay. May the force be with you. I need a drink.